there's more guys than ever that have been sort of equipped to do this now. And it's because like imported shrimp, the price is so low, right? Where they've had to, they want to keep working. They have a shrimp boat already, so they pivoted over to catching live shrimp. So, you know.
So these are imported live shrimp?
No. These are from here, right? Okay. So like, but like for instance, like this shrimp right here, this would be like 80 to 100 of these would be 40 cents.
Right.
Well, this guy's like 32 cents here. So, you know, like it's more work, there's more equipment. You have to have like swimming pool pumps and blowers and all this other stuff, right? But there's a little bit of a market for it.
I've never petted a shrimp before. I mean, I do put them on a hook, but...
Dude, I've had some in the aquarium. They're super animated, they're super smart. Yeah. Arguably like smarter than the fish.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it doesn't take too much.
Wow.
You just want the recipe, I said it's all grind. Had to go through in the rain to watch the day shine. This testimony taking faith, my glory go to God. Said I'ma keep this pace, I ain't racing this marathon. Package up in my carry-on. Smooth, super shy vibes. Sit back and play it cool while we vibe out. Sit and taste this food, have a drinking good time. But we all living fast, but we gon' die fly. We gon' die fly. Do stay in my cup on this one. Chef. It's Malachi. It's Malachi. It's Malachi.
What's going on, family? Very special episode, okay? So one of the things that I've really wanted to really do in life with this full-blown culinary career is at the end of it, I want to be able to travel this world, right? And tell people about food in a media space type of way, right? Want it to be beloved for it to be series, TV series, you know, National Geographic, Food Network type of thing. You know, in any media space that it comes, you know, that is my ultimate dream. But until then, I really want to learn about Louisiana food, right? Growing up in Shreveport, you know, it's very Arklatex, right? So Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, a lot of inspirations from Texas, Arkansas, you know, a lot of barbecue, a lot of just, or if we do have Louisiana type food, it's very Cajun food. It's not Creole food or anything else, right? And then in different parts of Louisiana, all the food is different. North Louisiana to Middle Louisiana to Southern Louisiana to New Orleans, Louisiana to Bayou, Louisiana, all of it's totally different. Like, none of it is the same. And it's always funny when I tell people, you know, I'm from the state of Louisiana, but I live in the state of New Orleans now. Like, it's two totally different types of Louisiana out here, right? So, but today, this episode, right, I got a chance to go on a boat tour with the Chef Brigade, right? So the Chef Brigade is a project of local chefs just trying to implement better ways to dispose of food, get rid of food, less than garbage, all that type of stuff, right? And tie back into helping in need, right? So Chef Brigade program did the hurricane relief when they was doing all the food and things like that. So that's the type of stuff they do, right? And they've partnered with the coastal area where they do these chefs on boat tours, which is really cool because you get a bunch of people who know food to go out into the Gulf of Mexico, learn about the coastal relief, what they're doing, efforts to build the land back up, because those lands not only help Mother Nature, the channels of the water, solidity of the water. So we talk about the food that we eat, right? Those seafood platters, like those fish have to grow in certain salinity, and things get off by nature, by human beings doing something, stuff gets off, less reproduction of food. Food doesn't taste as good, right? Also, whenever we get hurricanes grow out of water, but when they get over land, they start to decrease. The natural barrier are these barrier reefs down in the bayou, which have extended out into the Gulf. So when hurricanes go over, they lessen. So when they hit land, it's not as detrimental as it has been. Of course, with fracking, oil, all that type of stuff, people changing courses of rivers and things like that, stuff is starting to change a lot. But this episode, man, we're down in the bayou. We're learning about all this coastal relief. We're talking about food. Down this coastal area, talking about food, right? Learn about different history, things that's going on. It's a great episode. We're going to start off with the captain. He's going to tell us about everything that's going on with this relief program, right? And which is a really great thing. They got millions of dollars they're trying to put into these different projects and stuff. We see a lot of nature out there, learn a little history. Louisiana is just, it's a crazy place, and I'm excited to really keep learning about stuff. But hey, we're gonna jump to the episode. I gotta show y'all what's going on, man. Chef Brigade, thanks again for having me, and I hope to do some more with you.
The state has this huge master plan, right, where they're trying to hold back the sea more or less. And what's going on, this is a 50-year, $50 billion plan, and there's 2 or 3 main parts to it, right? There's the structural protection, right? So that's these black lines. These are the levees, the pumping stations, the floodgates, like the gray infrastructure. And then there's the restoration part of this. So this is like barrier island work. This is marsh creation. These are non-controversial projects, right? Like mining sediment from the bottom of some lake or, the river or the bottom of the Gulf, and then moving through a pipeline into these areas. But the most controversial projects are these ones with the little blue arrows. And so those are sediment diversions, right? So that's diverting fresh water out of the river out into these areas. So if the salinity of the Gulf of Mexico is like 35 parts per thousand, the salinity of the river is 0. And these are those sort of Goldilocks zones. Like out here, it's like 8 to 16. It's like prime for those species that are on the seafood platter in New Orleans, right? The stuff you want to eat. And there's going to be more fresh water along the coast, especially in this area here, The state's going to build these projects. It just seems imminent. There's another cut that's opening up down here that is the 5th largest river in North America right now, and it's just happened in the last 30 months or something. It's huge.
When you say cut, what do you mean?
So there's a new distributary of the river that's opened up that is so big you could bring any ship in the river through it. Not out into the ocean, but into it, and tie it up on the bank there if you wanted to, if there was a dock or something. It's very deep. There's 95 feet of water in it. It's 45 feet deep consistently at the river. It's really big, and nobody's talking about it.
That's what I was going to say. So what's the implication of that?
So it's pushing out fresh water from here all the way out past the Mr. Go. And so this area was super prime for oysters in the past. There's another cut way up here called Mardi Gras Pass that opened up. It's 4 or 5 times bigger than Mardi Gras Pass. Anyway, normally I start this thing a little bit differently. Sorry, guys. Anyway, we kind of just dove right in. But so the Mississippi River, the way it built this place, right, it used to kind of work its way across the landscape, right? So it built out a big subdelta. And, the water was really restricted in the river. And as it would get out here to the Gulf, the water would spread out. And so the sediment would fall down to the bottom. Sediment would accrete, log jams would come in, vegetation would grow, and some of these deltas get 8 or 10 feet above sea level. And what would happen is, you'd have this big delta, water is just eternally trying to find the quickest way downhill, right? And so it'd pop out, just like what's happening over there, and it would form a new subdelta. And then these old ones would slowly kind of go away. That happened 8 times or so in the last 10,000 years. People lived in this place by building these earthen mounds made out of one basket of mud and shell at a time. And they would pool their efforts and labor to live in these exceedingly productive landscapes, right? And, some people say, it's for ceremonial reasons. It's super practical too, right? They need to have fire, make pottery, cook food, all that kind of stuff. Just a dry place to live too. This is Poverty Point. It's in northern Louisiana. It's kind of near Vicksburg. It's really big. Like, I don't even think they realized it was a mound at first. They were plowing it, like throwing props on top of it. They had no
Wasn't
idea.
it just put on the National Historic Register, like historic places? I don't know. I thought that I had read that somewhere.
I'm not sure. It wouldn't surprise me, but I think this one's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It might be the.
Property Point looks like a big football field that's 20 feet up.
It's huge. I've driven through it. I didn't really get to explore it like I would like to. I'd really want to go for a few days when the weather's nice. Yeah. But you can see how people get around. They use like these dugout canoes or animal skin canoes. There was such a well-established trade network that they found arrowheads from Yellowstone in the site.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think those people don't get the credit they deserve. I mean, it was a full-blown civilization before the Europeans got here. So, but the thing is, like, you know, people were somewhat nomadic. You know, if the Delta became unfavorable, it was like, okay, well, we'll just go somewhere else and we could use this as a camp. But they didn't try and fight the water. They knew how to live with it, and they knew that this was the place to be, right? You know, Louisiana is just really productive. The weather's pretty fair, you know. I mean, it's not like intense winters or anything like that. So when the Europeans get here, there's a totally different form of land ownership, right? It's super individualistic. Whereas, like, these folks, you know, maybe there were some warring factions and different tribes and stuff that were on, you know, that kind of thing. Whereas, like, these folks are like, nope, this is mine. This is my little slice of earth. And so the river didn't care, right? It was constantly eating up the landscape, creating these oxbow lakes. And you didn't want to end up on one of these, right, if you own land, you know, because then you couldn't get steamboat in, pick up crops or whatever else. You couldn't, you know, you're cut off from information. Your land more or less became worthless. And so humanity started managing the river as this, like, really, like, engineered tool that made no sense for this landscape, right? Around the same time, we were push-poling, we were paddling, we were, like, hunting and trapping, right? And so it was really difficult to get around. And so we started plugging up all these little distributaries, these little rivers that would just bleed out sediment and fresh water into the delta all the time that would help hold on to the coast. Also, around the 1880s, we figured out a way to get ships in and out of the river. It was really hard. For like 150 years, we were just kind of figuring it out, bouncing off of sandbars and logs and stuff. And this guy, James Buchanan Eads, he was a salvor from St. Louis, and he was like picking up steamboat boilers and stuff like that. And so he had this really like visceral understanding how sediment would move down the bottom of the river like a fluid. And so he built this, like, say if this is one of the cuts out into the Gulf right here, he would build these like intersecting dams to help keep the center of those cuts flushed out, right? These passes. And like he bet his fortune on it, and he got paid like $7 million, you know, to do that work afterwards. But that needed more flow, right? And so they plugged up the rest of these. And so we have this like artificial condition where we've cut off the river from the delta for navigation, for like, you know, safety, certainty of commerce, all this kind of stuff. And now it's like kind of like time's up, right? But this was really just a system in name only until the Great Flood in 1927. It's like 600,000 people were homeless. There were these shanty towns on the levees. Like 200 people died. It was the worst economic and natural disaster in the country's history to that point in time. And the American people told Congress, like, you're not going to let this happen ever again. And so it really hasn't. They built the Mississippi River and tributary levee system. It's like locks and dams and reservoirs and flood control management. Like, we're going to hold water back this time of year and let it go this time of year. And to a smaller extent, like floodways. So like, you know, kind of a little extra bow in the levee to let water kind of pool, that kind of stuff. And then spillways like the Bonnie Carey or the one down in Bohemia, where water could just kind of go over the top of the levee and go out into these wetland areas. But what happened is, like, we really cut that overbank flow off. We cut off these little distributaries. Like, this was connected to the river at one point in time. We just cut it off. It was just the easier thing to do. We weren't thinking about 2 or 3 generations from now. And now, this is older data, right? Now it's something more like 2,000 square miles after Ida. And so, at the same time, we discovered oil and gas in South Louisiana. We cut 10,000 miles of pipeline canals. So now communities like Buras, 2/3 of the people have left. You know, it's a really thriving town, but it's really hard for folks to make it here now because you have to start building your house 19 feet in the air and stuff like that, you know. Even though this is still really a productive place. You know, there's a lot of fishing and stuff going on here. A lot of different type of fishing. There's like energy extraction. There's the navigation on the river, and it's not like Florida where we're like nobody's here for the view. You know, it's an economic need, right? Yeah. So we talked about the master plan, right? It's $50 billion, 50-year plan. The money mostly comes from like oil and gas stuff, right? The Deepwater Horizon fines, and then there's some profit sharing from say like the Gulf of Mexico when areas are leased, and then production from the Gulf, like 37.5% comes to the Gulf Coast oil producing states. A friend of mine equated that to like funding your gym membership with like proceeds from a pie eating contest or something. You know, it's like if your climate change is causing problems and you're depending on oil and gas, it's just like a really like dangerous feedback loop. But they did build in like if there's wind and alternative energy collection in the Gulf, that those proceeds would come here too. So that's super promising. So this is normally where it's like, oh, so I need to go to the bathroom before you hit the water. But do y'all have any?
What's up, everybody? So I'm out here in Empire, Louisiana. Down here in the Gulf of Mexico, down here on the Mississippi River, and out here with the Chef Brigade's program, where we're going to be learning about oysters, learning about the reef down here that's in the bayou that really protects the land of Louisiana. So with hurricanes and storms that come up, the reef is what really stops the hurricanes from really destroying Louisiana. These reefs, they protect the grounds from Native Americans. The oyster bed is fishing down here. So we're learning all about the issues in which Mother Nature has causing, and also what just fracking has done to the lands out here. So I'm really excited to really show y'all what's going on. We're about to get on the boat, so I gotta go.
Right inside the boat, it's important maybe not to get up and move around right here. See a nice little pool forming up in front of the boat. You can see that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, check that thing out.
Is that typical with these little nuts?
Yeah. It's just water's trying to get down. We're about 90 feet of water right here. It's like so smooth. Up in front of us, that's probably either a glossy, a scarlet, glossy scarlet. There's an ibis, but like there's another one that they all look very similar, white-faced. Those are. I used to only see flocks of like 7 of those, and now I'm seeing flocks of like 107. And it seems like it's not spotted, but much more of those ibis now, which tells me the habitat is really doing well around here.
You gonna burn? Does it burn?
I have sunscreen on board too if anybody needs it. What's that?
It's just cool how they.
A really geometric. It's got a bug on that leaf down there, like a stink bug.
messing you up with the shadows.
No, you're good.
You know, there was that other cut that came through and went around the other side of the pond. Well, this is where the end of the mud flat was at. And so there was a cut that still went another 50 or 80 feet in front of that. But this is a new cut from the Mississippi River that has gotten really, really big. I'm talking about like 30 months time. It's really blown up like crazy. And you can see how much current there is just right here on the bank. We're only in 4 feet of water right now. It wouldn't surprise me if there's like 40 feet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the boat like just headed kind of straight across and just keep idling it at the rate we are, just to kind of pick up on, you know, how fast the current really is here.
What's that over
That's
there?
a platform out in Quarantine Bay, but that used to be in 5 or 8 feet of water. There's only a foot of water around it now. So we're in 30 feet of water right now. Really dropped off quick. You can see how the current kind of has us too.
Yeah.
Just kind of idle across. So the last sort of field trip before the pandemic, I brought some students out over on the right where those willow are at. We planted 160 cypress. There were no willow trees there. And if I would have known this thing would have blown up so quickly, I would never would have planted here.
Right.
You can't, yeah. The water's about 40 feet deep here.
So the cypress got washed away?
Yeah, some of them did. A lot of them are still there. Let's see, I went and checked them the other day. But they're not growing nearly as fast as those willow. The willow are just super prime for this type of habitat. So there's nothing that's blocking the Mississippi River from going out to the Gulf. We just hit 46 feet of water. It's probably the deeper spot here. And so this is becoming a new distributary of the Mississippi, and nobody's really talking about it. It almost seems like maybe there's even efforts afoot to just kind of let it do its thing. Now there's going to be a lot of land built out here, right? So like we could go idling around out there, and we would eventually like start rubbing on sandbars and stuff. Because the river is high, though, you really can't see a lot of the land growth. And this thing's not finished cutting yet, right? Nobody's messed with this in a hot minute.
Oh, you're gonna use a boat?
Yeah.
Done a couple times, huh?
What happens here? I don't want to. Yeah, so this thing probably got buried up. Got it loose.
Oh, it's sand, huh?
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna hurt myself trying to get that thing
Yeah.
up. You can see this area's changed, right? Where they moved the trap. They had barnacles growing on this at one point in time, and now this thing is just filled with mud.
It's crazy they just leave the trap. It was like $25 or something.
Oh, they're like 60 now. See how much deposition is in there. Also, like, these things never stop fishing, right? I mean, you know, something evidently or eventually is going to crawl in there, and then it's going to die. It's going to attract other crabs, other fish. And so they call those ghost traps, right? And for a long time, you could just crab whenever you wanted, right? You could crab year-round. Now there's a 1 month shutdown, so they can go and clear out some of these ghost traps, but there's no real funding for that, and they should maybe pay the crabbers to go and do that. If they can't fish for a month, like, send those folks out to go pick up traps, you know? But they make it, yeah, that's it.
So right now, there's no one maintaining that?
No, I mean, there's some smaller grants and stuff like that, but like the big environmental not-for-profits get those, and or at least I think they do.
Yeah.
Could be wrong there, but they've done that kind of work before. But maybe they're mobilizing some of their stuff. What's the float at? But this submerged aquatic vegetation is just a really, really productive habitat for these sort of building blocks of the food chain, right? I can try to look at all these copepods and stuff. So this is the stuff that makes the building blocks of the food chain, right? And these are eaten by bigger fish, shrimp, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, some of these are pretty big and meaty, right? You know, if you're, bird, eating those, different species of fish.
Ooh, what are all these
Yeah.
new bugs that are like,
Yep.
hi.
Did you get some of that?
Yeah, I did.
A bay that was 2 or 3 feet deep, just about everywhere you go. It was kind of saltier. It was shallow, so no oysters would grow in it. There wasn't really a lot going on. And so this project was funded through this funding mechanism called QIPRA. And the way QIPRA works is, say like you buy this outboard motor, you buy gasoline in a marina, you buy like fishing lures and shotgun shells and stuff. There's a small tax that goes aside to do restoration work. And that's what the funding came from, right? So this was only like a $2.3 million project or something. And so a cut was dug to allow fresh water to sediment into the area. And then something like 19,000 feet of terraces were built. And this kind of served as a log jam, right? It helped to slow down the flow and it allowed the water to kind of work its way through here. And it's been quite the land builder. So we would have been in the middle of this bay right now. And there's, there's some heron that are flying there. There's willow trees that are popping up all over the place. I'm just gonna hush and let y'all enjoy the
This is
natural
nice.
soundtrack.
That is a beautiful thing.
Right.
as part of this like Spanish-American War sort of like coastal defense system. The thing is, though, occupation here began like way back. Iberville and Beanville stayed here, right? And allegedly this is where the first Mardi Gras in Louisiana was, which was probably like a couple swigs of wine and some rabbits too. But anyway, they were here. They camped before they moved on, and that was like in 1699. So after that, the Spanish ended up with the place. They built an earthen and timber fort here. It was always flooding. It was just never really worked right, but they had some sort of colonial outpost here, for lack of a better term. Anyway, some time goes on. The French get it again. They build a fort. The Americans get it. That fort sees action during... It's kind of a trip to walk through there. I feel like I'm looking more in the future than in the past sometimes when I'm back there.
No, April, I'm coming back to you. Let me know.
Yeah. It's January or February, yeah.
Oh yeah, when it's nice and cold. Setting facility. So they were going to take, this is where the oyster shells were brought from the city, and they were drying them out here, and they were going to use these tanks. They were going to put the oyster shells in the tanks spread out, and they were going to put oyster larvae in there so the oysters could attach to those shells, and then the fishermen would either buy them or there was going to be some kind of agreement where they would go out onto those oyster leases. The thing is, though, the facility was never used. It's probably been here nearly 10 years. And the thing is, like, getting this back into service would be key. Some folks say the water might be a little too fresh, but water can be brought from the Gulf of Mexico and like say a shrimp hold of a boat, and then just pump a little bit saltier. But it's an opportunity. Nothing's going on here. The parish government is going to take it back over at the end of the 10 years. So it seems like it's prime for something to start happening. If y'all have any ideas, y'all definitely let us know.
It'd be kind of cool to have like a big dinner.
Yeah.
Like when the
an
weather's
outstanding in
nice.
the field style.
Yeah, this
Or
is a
this,
cool
like,
spot.
pavilion,
Yeah.
What? These are the tanks.
Yeah, if y'all want to come take a look, I mean, there's some cinder blocks on the other side. We can kind of pop up in there. But they got it's real simple. They got a couple pipes and such, and then this is something like a swimming pool pump could work, And you could use bayou water, or you could have like one of the tanks is like a giant filter. You just have like oyster shells in there, maybe like a kind of like a screen or something, or some kind of like a foam, not foam, you know what I mean, to get all the detritus out. And then the other two could be used for setting. There's options.
Well, and there's the other thing too. It's like, so it's built for oysters, but like, what I'm just curious, like, what stops them from being like those tanks at the marina where it's shrimp?
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be different kind of aquaculture.
I mean,
could be
you
going
can
on.
put anything in these tanks, right?
What's that?
You can put anything in them.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, and from what I understand, they hold water. They're still functional, but the pumping equipment and stuff isn't here. Now, April and I were out here the other day, and we were talking like, because of hurricanes and stuff, like you could put that pump on like a trailer or something. And just like when a hurricane's coming, you can pull over the levee. You might lose your crop or something, but at least you don't lose your equipment too. But there's some options here. I think, like, let's just assume all the electrical was just fried, you know? So some of that might need to be redone or re-examined. Like, yeah, look at that over
But in
there.
the scheme of things, electrical's not that.
Yeah.
Because it's already been run, it's like not that crazy.
I mean, you can even put, like you said, like equipment on a trailer, like a big.
Like, I want to follow y'all on social media.
Malachi, Malachi.